next card I have, and this is the last one I have, is Barbara Elistad.
More than a statement, I have a couple questions, if I may. Am I allowed to ask questions?
Sure.
Okay. The filing indicates that Reliance has an annual shortfall of $1,004,118. The proposed rate changes will provide $266,126. I'm hoping my numbers are right here. And the difference is the $737,992 that Rio Virgin is requesting from the NUSF fund. So I hope I have those numbers right. My question is this to Rio Virgin officials. If the request for the $737,000 from the NUSF fund is turned down and not granted, how do you propose to make up the difference if your annual shortfall is just over $1 million a year?
Well, I'll start out, and you can keep the microphone. I think I can speak loud enough. I mean, that's why the request is so important, and that's why we made it, because for a regulated telephone company, there are only so many places to get additional funding, and so we think that fund is meant precisely to avoid further rate increases, which, is, like I said, is really one of the only alternatives the company would have. Companies can always, as I think as Walter pointed out, there are sometimes opportunities for companies to scale things back. Sometimes that can mean reductions in service quality, it can mean reductions in service availability. There are ways that, from a cost perspective, we could attempt to address the situation, but typically what it would mean is rate increases of a further nature to meet that number, because the target number that you're discussing is the number that we are short under our current calculation presented in the application. So if we don't get the NUSF funding, the only real alternative is to either get it from the customer or try to scale things back. That's a lot of money. So there would only be so much scaling back that would be possible there. So I think it's fair to say that it would probably mean further rate increases.
So this is the first time, if I understand correctly, this is the first time that Rio Virgin has requested any funds from the NUSF fund. Is that correct?
Correct. So the funds didn't exist until, I believe, and I'm reaching back before my time here a little bit, but I think it was created in the mid to late 90s for this purpose, at least. Maybe someone can correct me, but no, we have not had a rate case like this, a proceeding in which we could have requested it. As it turns out, I think probably we should have come in earlier, with the earlier request. But you're right; it didn't exist, at some earlier point, and since it has existed, we have not been in for one of these requests, so we have not asked for any of those.
I'm a little astonished at that. This $1 million shortfall did not occur overnight.
No, and I think that's why I said I think we probably should have come in earlier, because it takes a lot of investment to run a telephone company, and it's one of the difficulties of that kind of business. It's very resource and infrastructure intensive, and I think also in the filing it points out that our earnings were like 2%. So maybe it's 2 or 3%, something like that. And so clearly, this company, it's our view, we've been under earning for a lot of years. And so, we probably should have come in before, but, for whatever reason, the company, waited and instead earned a very low rate of return for that period of time. So, during that time, obviously the rates remained at this current level. In our view, the time has come to finally address this situation, because obviously we have to spend money to build this business.
with this almost, or at least $5 a month increase per customer, per residential line, correct? Are there any planned improvements that the residential customers are going to experience?
So that's a good question, and Mr. Oster might be the better person to address it, but I think the company is always looking to advance its services and always looking to, for example, deploy facilities into new areas and make sure that customers are getting, both from a regulated phone perspective and from an infrastructure perspective, a high quality, state-of-the-art network.
So are there any actual plans on the books
Well,
for
that's what I was gonna ask
improvements
you.
in residential service?
Right, so there may be projects that are kind of in the pipeline that you're able to speak to.
Yeah, it's, all of our new projects that we do, instead of doing copper cable, we're doing fiber optics. So all of the new subdivisions, we deploy fiber optics. We're overbuilding what they call a brownfield overbuild. We're pulling the fiber through the old areas of town like that, and then as people sign up, we can put fiber on those, like there's some businesses that have fiber, the hospital, the city, the schools and stuff like that, some of the locations in town. So we're always trying to improve. We haven't placed any copper in the ground in probably 4 or 5 years. So we're always moving towards that. And then, part of the rate decrease was that 75 cents per touch tone. That has been in the tariff since '85. Everywhere else, when you sign up for phone service, it's included in your phone service. So it's, that was part of the reduction there.
So if my house is 12 years old, am I ever going to stand a chance of having fiber optic run to my house?
Yeah.
Under this rate increase plan? In the next 2 years?
It
Depends where you live, I think.
depends on where you're currently living at.
Well,
Most of
I'll
the
tell you where I
back-
live and then you move me to the top of the list. How's that? Does that work for you? Works great for me. I love it. So I guess what I'm really asking for the residential customers, because the planned increase is not that great for businesses, at least on the surface. But it's a significant increase per month for residents. And so I guess I'm asking, what are we going to get in our homes for paying almost $5 a month extra? Other than you guys are going to have a little bit better earnings per share.